My name is Julie Demers. I'm the Executive Director of the New Hampshire Tech Alliance. I will be in this program very briefly today. I have the very exciting job of introducing our speakers today. So Brendan Sheehan is a co-founder and managing partner at Macronet Services, and sort of standing with Brendan, leading him through the process, prompting the questions that you have today will be Katie Smith. She's a manager of cloud engineering at Fastly. So I won't take any more of your time. Just a couple housekeeping items, which I'm sure Katie will cover as well because she's fantastic. If you have questions throughout the program, we're going to keep this very organic, keep it flowing really naturally. Please enter it in the Ask a Question section. We'll be monitoring the chat. I'm a creature of habit, so I tend to throw all of my questions in chat naturally. So we'll try to make sure those questions get to the correct area. But thank you so much for joining us. And without further ado, Katie and Brendan.
Thanks very much. As Julie said, I'm Katie Smith. I'm the manager of cloud engineering at Fastly, and I'm really excited to be hosting today's event on behalf of the New Hampshire Tech Alliance. If you're not familiar, the New Hampshire Tech Alliance is a statewide technology association that's dedicated to supporting companies, building partnerships, and providing educational opportunities across New Hampshire. And over the past year, we watched the pandemic make a lot of changes throughout our lives. I think the most important was in our schools. We've watched students and educators embrace technology and learn new ways to work together. So through this event, the New Hampshire Tech Alliance is really hoping to give back to students by providing opportunities to learn about different career paths in technology through different experts in the field like Brendan. So over the next 30 minutes, you'll hear from Brendan Sheehan and learn a little bit about what his role is as managing partner and co-founder at Macronet Services. As Julie said, please feel free to use the Ask a Question feature below. And before we get started, a quick reminder that these sessions, including the questions in chat, are being recorded and will be shared out after the event. Without further ado, I'll turn it to Brendan.
Thank you, Katie. So everybody that's on or who is watching this in the future, nice to meet you. I'm Brendan Sheehan with Macronet Services. I'm going to talk a little bit about my past career and life in technology and kind of where I am today. I'm a 30-year-old entrepreneur. I've been running my own company for 4 years now. But 9 years ago, I was at UNH as a political science major, trying to figure out what I was going to do getting out of college. The life of a person in technology is a lot different, I think, than most people think. And there's so many different career paths. Today, I'm going to talk to you about sales. Sales is something that I think a lot of people think of car salesmen, think of real estate people. They think of someone who has a physical product and they're trying to sell that. Oh, that's the only product they're selling. They're trying to sell that product to a particular person or a particular company. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what we do. I don't call myself a salesperson anymore. I call myself a consultant or a sales professional. Very big difference because what we're doing is not helping our clients, our customers, find or purchase new technology. We're helping them solve a problem or find a problem and then give them the solution to the problem that they might not have seen. And one great example would be this technology we're using right now. So we sell communication technology. Everyone knows Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype for Business. This is just Crowdcast is another example of a product or service that none of us might have used 12 months ago that all of a sudden we're on today, and we understand it. We understand what we're doing. We understand what the purpose is. Today we're using it for education, but tomorrow you could be using it to broadcast a dance recital for your daughter to your family. There's so many different uses for technology. I've really enjoyed my career in technology, starting with 9 years ago when I started working at Dyn DNS. A lot of people in New Hampshire know Dyn. They were acquired by Oracle. A lot of the people on the New Hampshire Tech Alliance used to work at Dyn or have an affiliation with Dyn in some way, which I think they've created a nice ecosystem of technology community up in the Manchester area. So Katie, I think what would be a good way to start is I'll talk about kind of my getting out of college, starting at the Startup Institute, and then jumping into kind of where I am today and then what I currently do. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And I know I have a lot of questions about your background, so I'm excited to hear from you. And again, if anybody has questions, feel free to ask them as we go through this.
Cool. Awesome. So I was at UNH. I graduated in 2012. I had a double major in political science and international affairs with a minor in Spanish. I was working at a lobbying firm. I had done an internship at the New Hampshire State Senate. I was very interested in politics, very interested in getting into a career right out of college, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So after my little stint in politics, I decided that wasn't my spiel. So I transitioned very quickly to trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And one day, I just happened upon a career in technology. So my dad was meeting my father down in Boston. He brought me into a place called the Mass Innovation Hub. Many people on this meeting or people watching this probably know of that by now. Back then, it was very small. It was a room with maybe 10 desks in it, and there was just a couple people in the room, and they were all working on computers. And I'm like, what are all these people doing? So I started talking to them, and someone had introduced me to something called the Startup Institute. A lot of people know startup incubator programs. This one was a startup incubator program for people. So they were teaching people who had never been in technology how to start a startup. That was the concept of the program. And one of the tracks was sales. So being with my background, I wasn't an engineering person. I wasn't a computer science, math, none of that. I didn't know anything about any of that technology. It was 2012. I had a flip phone, and I had a Lenovo ThinkPad. That battery lasted about 30 minutes, so I barely used it because I wasn't able to sit by a computer charger in the wall. So after 6 months at the Startup Institute, or 3 months at the Startup Institute, Dine found me, and someone at Dine was a member of the Startup Institute. They were an investor in them, and I started working for. Dine was maybe only 150 people. 200 people at the time. So I started, I would say, before they really blew up. They didn't have any big funding. So everyone probably now knows what startup funding is. I think they had just received their Series B funding, 20 million. And then maybe 12 months after I got on, they got 130 million. They blew up. There was so many people, so many offices. It was a very lively atmosphere. Working in sales, you can work from home, you can work on the road. They were flying me places. I got to go visit San Francisco. When I was in San Francisco, I decided at some point I wanted to live in San Francisco. That'll pop up later in my story. So after about 2.5 years at Dine, a friend, one of my bosses, moved down to Boston to a company called Thinking Phones Fuse. I call it Thinking Phones Fuse because they changed names to Fuse. And he pulled me down there. It seemed like a good opportunity for growth in my career. So in sales, there's kind of 3 levels of sales. There's the lead generation, which is called business development, where you're just setting meetings. You're just identifying clients who have a problem that your product might solve, and then you're setting a meeting for the sales person or the account executive or the regional sales manager. Those titles are kind of all interchangeable. But the person who's essentially going to onboard the new client from a prospect to a client. And so I was able to get the opportunity to go move out to California. So I lived in San Francisco. The company Fuse moved me and at the time my girlfriend Lauren out to California. We were living in downtown San Francisco, pretty cool place to be, working in technology. So I got to learn a lot when I was out there, and I was there for 2.5 years, and then I moved back to Boston. And then once I was back in Boston, Fuse, this is a story that everyone in their career will have sometime, and not a lot of people like to share them. But there was a point where there was a lot of transition in leadership at Fuse. So a lot of my bosses had left, and there was a lot of new people coming in. And typically when that happens in a company, they kind of and specifically in technology companies, they phase out some of the old, what they call the old guard. So the people who had been there for a while. So I was phased out. So essentially I was fired. I showed up Friday one day, one afternoon, and someone just grabbed me and said, "Hey, it's your last day. Pack your bags. You're out of here." After 4 years, you think there was a little loving, but it's just, that's technology, that's business. So I wiped the dirt off my back after I got kicked on the street, and I found my current business partner, Scott Bryan, found me just walking around the streets of Portsmouth, and he said, "Hey, I've got this company, Macronet. This is what we do," and he brought me on 4 years ago. So that's kind of where I am today, Katie. Feel free to ask any questions about that, and now I can start talking about what I do today.
Yeah, I definitely have a couple questions. I think that phasing out is something that a lot of like students or people getting early in their tech careers are nervous about. You enter a job and you expect to be there for several years, and you never really know. What do you think the best skill you had was to help you land that new job with Macronet?
I think the skill that I had that Scott saw in me was I was very independent. Once I'm onto something, once I see something and I want to go get it, I just go after it. I don't really need a lot of. I'll ask a lot of questions about why I should do things a certain way, and I'll have a lot of like back office, like consultative discussions, internal discussions before I go and show up in front of a customer and present new technologies, new solutions. So that's something that as a salesperson, it's really hard to get up and get motivated. Everyone has been either at home the past 12 months, or whether they're working or they're in school. Motivation is really hard. So like, how do you get up every day? What fires you? What gets you going? And you gotta really think about not today, maybe not even tomorrow, but what's your vision down the road? What are you trying to achieve long term in your life, and how is what the job that you're doing today going to impact that long term goal that you're seeking? And that's what I think I've had a lot of mentors help me focus on that, like long term objective, and it's helped because I didn't really stop at all. I think I got fired from Fuse on a Friday. That following Tuesday, I was already working somewhere else. And you know what? I jumped into it probably too soon, but I didn't jump into it with a commitment. And I think that's like, I didn't like sign a multi-year contract that I have to go work for these guys for a couple of years. It was, hey, I'm going to try this out. I'm not doing anything right now. Why not go try something new? And it was the best decision I made. It was the best decision I made in my entire career, was starting to work with Scott, because now I work for I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. This morning I didn't get going until 10 minutes ago because I was taking care of my daughter. So it's a fun place to be, working for yourself. And I think a lot of people aspire to do that. But once you get there, it's hard to stay motivated. I think that's a big problem that people have, is that motivation factor. And that's something that I don't know what it was when I was growing up, what my parents fed me, but I've just always just been, I wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. just wired, and I just go.
Yeah, I agree. I think it sounds like you've really found what is exciting to you, and you can tell that you're really passionate. One more question from the chat before you dive into kind of your day-to-day.
Sure.
What advice do you have for a person like yourself that didn't have a technology background but wanted to get started in a career in tech?
Good question. Technology isn't complicated. So right now I'm using, let me see, I have a $1,500 laptop. I've got a $450 monitor, a $500 camera, a $400 speaker, but like they all just work. There's people who build these things, and there's people who sell these things, and there's you need to understand the concepts of how things work. A lot of the times you don't need to understand each component. So I think that's something people get afraid of, is they hear about companies like big publicly traded companies that they want to go work for. They want to go be a consultant. They want to go do something in technology, and they just don't understand the technology yet. Don't worry about it. You're gonna pick it up if you start talking the lingo and you start engaging with peers who already know the technology. Because that's, I mean, I didn't go back to school to figure out how this camera works. I just learned over time through working with people who already built the camera, so or know how to build the cameras, or sold me this speakerphone microphone. So I think the technology is a lot of people see as something that's too complex to use, but a lot of the way that it's designed today is not to be a complex and difficult to use piece of equipment. You plug everything in, you configure a couple settings, and you're up and running. But
Awesome.
don't be afraid, I guess is my advice.
Yeah, I really like that advice. I think just diving in and figuring out what you want to learn and finding people or subjects that can help you get there is important.
Yeah, and take things apart. I'll take things apart sometimes. If you can't put them back together, whatever, move on.
It's that curious spirit, I feel like, that keeps you going.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah. So should I get into what I do now?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Cool. So this presentation I'm going to show you all is, I'd love for someone on the chat just to say something that's interesting to them, because I'm going to go through a lot pretty quickly, and I can go back. So I'd love to go back to something that's very interesting, because I'm going to show you some really cool technology. You're probably not going to understand most of what I'm showing you, but I promise we can go back and I can explain things. And Katie, feel free to stop me and make me explain things as I'm going through, because some things that I'm showing might be a bit complex.
Can do.
So what Macronet does, we are a value-added services distributor, and we're helping our clients new technology. And it starts with an assessment. So we go in and we spend time working with them prior to even presenting a new product or solution. So we have, similar to if you went to a car distributor and they had the ability to sell Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Mercedes, Lamborghinis. They could sell you any type of car. That's Macronet. We can sell any type of technology. We have 200 different service providers that we work with. So our number one goal is to give the client a product or a solution that solves that problem long term, because we only get paid if the product is implemented successfully and if the client is up and running and using the technology. If they don't use the technology, or if it doesn't implement, or if it's a failed implementation, we do not get paid. That's our business model. I try to simplify it and dumb it down as much as possible. And Katie, feel free to make me go into more detail. But this kind of life cycle of assessment, design, sourcing. This is when we're bringing in the service providers to help the client say, I like service provider A or B or C, but let's just talk to A and B. And then we work through the implementation process with them, and then long-term account governance. And I'll get into the specific technologies in a second. As a consultant, we help our clients with very complex business analysis and audits. So we will work with them to build presentations for their executive leadership team that go very deep into what their existing spend is, how categorizing the different technologies they're using. So let's say, for example, today you have a Verizon cell phone bill, and that Verizon cell phone bill doesn't have unlimited data. And you have to pay per gigabyte per month for your data plan with Verizon. Over time, you might only use 1 or 2 gigabytes of data, but there might be a point in time where getting an unlimited plan is cheaper than paying per gigabyte per month. That's what we run those analyses for our clients. to help them figure out what's the best way to implement and source and procure the technologies that's going to save them the most money and provide them the most value. These are different examples. I'm taking screenshots, omitting client details, but these are actual numbers clients are spending. $143,000 a month. We save them $42,000 a month, for example. And there's multiple different service buckets that we work in. So as a consultant, we have a consulting organization. We have others that we work with that aren't the founders of the company, that some are on our website, some are not, that will help come in and do these analyses and audits and manage the implementations on our behalf. And the clients will pay us, we pay the consultants go and do the work. So we kind of have like we're not only helping the client source the product, but also providing them the people to actually go and implement the product or disconnect the old product. So talking about the products, I'm going to show you some really cool pictures, and we're going to do a virtual reality tour of the different products and solutions that we sell. So this is our unified communications and audio visual design. And I'm going to talk about what's in this room for a second. So I'm going to stay on this slide because it's important, because we sell everything that you see in this conference room. So if you're a big global business, big global enterprise is what we say, you typically will have some sort of video conferencing technology built into your conference room. The typical players that everybody knows of is Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype for Business, Cisco WebEx, the Blue Jeans. These are technologies that have been around for some a long time, some are pretty new to the market, but all of them are standardized across the enterprise space. And what we do is we help the clients figure out what's going to be the right solution for them to consume. So looking at this conference room, what we're presenting to clients here is a clean conference room. There's nothing on this table. The sound in this conference room, I know we can't hear it, but everything that you see on the wall here that has a logo on it, so this Fender amp guitar, that's an acoustic panel. All down the wall, these are acoustic panels. Acoustic panels help soften the noise in the room. So if you ever walk into I always think of a gymnasium. The echo in a gymnasium is unbelievable. Whereas if you walked into this room and you screamed at the top of your lungs, there would be no echo. There would be no reverberation of sound because all the sound gets absorbed into these panels. So it makes the equipment, the video conferencing equipment in the room, work better. So up at the front of the room is the video conferencing equipment that you see. Up at the top, there's a speaker, microphone, soundbar. Down here, there's a camera. There is a touch panel. That touch panel is wireless. You can walk up, grab that touch panel. It's an iPad, and you can go and sit down at the desk, and you can click Start Meeting, and then your Zoom video conferencing meeting will pop up on the display. The camera will turn on, the microphone will turn on, the speaker will turn on. All that stuff will happen in a flash. It'll just one click start. That's our job, is to give the client that one click start meeting experience, and that's what I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do it. So this is like a medium-sized conference room. Here's more of like a boardroom style conference room. So you have here you have microphones and speakers built into the ceiling. You see up here these little microphone pods. You have speakers, nice big speakers distributed right over the heads of the people sitting in the room, so that the sound is essentially a cone around their heads. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in virtual reality. And then up at the front of the room, you have cameras and TVs, and then you have the touch panel built into the table back here. This we didn't build, but I wanted to pull this up because this is an education space. Everyone here probably has everyone who's joined has been on a Zoom meeting from home. Imagine if your Zoom meeting from home for your teacher looked like this. So they're standing up in the front of the room with a digital whiteboard. They have a confidence monitor. They have the time. They have everybody's face on the screen. The lighting in the room makes the speaker essentially look as good in terms of like light frequencies as good as possible with the cameras in the room. The cameras are moving back and forth as the speakers moving back and forth. This is really advanced way to do video conferencing, but I think we're going to see a lot more of this in the classroom in the future. This is what I say is kind of the classroom of the future.
Hey, Brendan, quick question on that last slide.
Yeah.
First off, I think there's probably a ton of teachers and even students that would love this setup. Really exciting to see where we're going. Can you talk a little bit about why people want this kind of technology in their offices or in like their teaching center?
So the goal, and I'm going to walk backwards here. The goal is to give a more collaborative environment, as if a teacher is teaching, standing up in front of the room and able to use all the technology behind them as if they're standing in front of you, but you're sitting at home. So giving the better the experience of the video communication technology, I believe the more the students are going to be able to consume and understand, and the more they will engage with the people who are speaking.
Definitely, I agree with that. And then quick question from Marlana in the chat. Who on your team works on that virtual reality design? It sounds like that would be an interesting career path. And did they need a degree to get into using that virtual reality? No,
I do virtual reality design. So let's jump to that, because I don't know, how much time do we have left?
Yeah, you're coming up on your time here, but we don't have a speaker after you for the morning session, so I think you can keep going.
Let's show this. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Cool. So anyone can do this. DGI Technologies, the audiovisual company that we work with, has their offices down in Billerica, Massachusetts, and they have a headset. And I'm just going to show you what it looks like when you're in VR. They have a headset that you can just put on, and you can go do this tomorrow. So this is Mike Walsh using the virtual reality headset that they have. And he is designing this conference room that Dave is explaining to him what to do. So here's what it looks like when you design a conference room. And I'm going to narrate this because I don't believe you can hear the audio. So I'm going to narrate this. So here's a very large conference room that was designed virtually. So everything in this room was built from vapor, right? They used these nunchucks and this video headset to be able to design the space. And there's all sorts of audio and video equipment on the walls and the ceilings, on the table, that whether it's speakers, microphones, cameras, displays, racks, so video equipment racks, we try to show the client what that will look like in real life. And here's an example of the maximum distance that a microphone will pick. This microphone right here will pick up in the space. So this is, I think it's 15 or 20 feet. So 20 feet from the display, there's this blue bubble that appears to say, if this person is sitting in the back of the room, they essentially won't be heard. So guess what? We're going to have to redesign this room if you want those people in the back of the room to be heard. We're going to have to implement different audio-visual technology in the room. And so I'll just play through the rest of the video and continue. I know we're pretty much out of time, so I'll wrap up. So here's a microphone that has 8 different lobes. A lobe is essentially a point in the room where it picks up, you point the microphone to pick up a certain space in the room, and then I don't do this, but a audio programmer will design the technology to work a certain way. But as you can see, the concepts are very easy to understand as you're looking at the way that these people are designing the conference rooms and using the technology to design them. So here's deleting a TV and installing an LED wall. What would an LED wall look like? This is a 4x4 Barco Unici LED wall compared to just a standard display. So we're able to show clients multiple different options on the fly to say, hey, I want this instead of that. I think this looks better than that. Or The furniture, we currently have 5 seats in the room, but we really need 10. What does that look like? Here's something very creepy, but this is showing line of sight. If someone was sitting in each one of these seats, what is their line of sight to the display? And it's flashing red or green whether or not they have a good line of sight. We're moving really fast here, so I'm doing my best to explain it. And once you're in the editor, you can jump around the room to see different points of view of the space to say, okay, everything looks good from this corner, but not from that corner. And here's someone building the space in fast mode. They did this probably over 20 minutes, and they're showing you what it looks like, so you can build any furniture in the space. And I'm going to wrap this up, Katie, and I'm going to wait for any questions.
Yeah, I definitely have a few that I personally have, and I'm sure others that are either watching the recording or watching this live have too. First off, really cool that you could turn using basically an Oculus VR headset into part of what you do for work. I think that's a really interesting story. So I just want to make sure that I have this kind of straight. Part of your role is to figure out what technology should go into that VR space, correct?
Correct, yes.
And then it gets designed and presented to the customer or the client to show them what the best recommendation is. And I think it shows the value too as to why you've chosen the technology.
Yeah, I think what happens is a lot of times a client will come to you and they're used to very poor audio, video, visual equipment. So they don't know what great looks like, or they don't know what great sounds like. And so they'll say, yeah, I'm just going to go I'm just going to put a laptop in the room and I'm going to hook it up to the TV. And we'll just use the TV speakers and the laptop microphone, and that's good enough for us. And then all of a sudden we're like, wait, what's the microphone pickup of that laptop? And he's like, well, it should pick up everybody in the room. We're like, well, let me show you. Let me show you how far it will actually pick up in the room. And what camera you're using? Oh, the built-in camera on the laptop. Let me just show you what that looks like compared to a camera like this. So there's many different ways to help a client understand what's better. Not that I'm saying they have to buy better, but a lot of times they just don't know. And they don't realize that if they put their employees in a conference room and it has terrible AV, that in the end, the employees are going to be not as satisfied with the meeting experience that they just had. Just like if a student's at home and a teacher sounds terrible because their microphone stinks and you can't even see them because their camera's from a Windows 7 machine, it's just not the same experience as using a 4K camera and a HD microphone. It's just not the same. And as a person who's used very poor technology, and every once in a while I'll pick up calls on my cell phone and I'll just take calls that way, and I'll notice the difference of why wouldn't I just go up to my office and just take a call here? It's so much better. So stop straining yourself to, when you're in these meetings, these long hour, 2 hour, sometimes 8 hour long video conference calls. It's very straining on your mind and very straining on your eyes if you're trying to pick up things that are really hard to see and really hard to hear. So reduce your strain and get better technology. That's what we help clients do.
Agreed. Here I was thinking that my laptop mic was fine, but maybe I'll be looking into some upgrades.
Yours is pretty good. Yours is pretty good. Yeah.
Thank you. And then what aspect of your job is the most fun for you? Where do you find joy?
There's a couple things. First is I very much enjoy meeting new clients. So a lot of people in sales like to have one client and establish that one relationship and hold on to that one relationship for a very long time. My biggest joy is finding new clients to work with because I like new projects. Once I get into a project, I want it to wrap up as quickly as possible because I want to get on to the next one. So I very much enjoy the hunt of sales, is going out and finding new people to work with. And that's an answer you probably won't hear from a lot of salespeople, but it's almost like if you're an athlete and you wake up every morning and you run a mile, and that's it. That you never stop running a mile. That's it, 1 mile a day. At some point, you're gonna be like, wait, I think I want to run 2 miles, or maybe I want to run a marathon. It's just I want to keep going. And a lot of people in sales want to just find 1 or 2 clients and just have that as their customer base, where I'm just always exploring new opportunities and new projects and new technologies. And DGI was a partnership I created 2.5 years ago, and it's been such a fun ride. Those guys are awesome, and as you can tell, they have really cool technology. They have virtual reality. They have a golf simulator in their office. Anytime you want to go in and play some golf, let's go.
Such a fun place to be. I don't see any other questions. Any last words of wisdom, especially for our high school and college listeners?
Words of wisdom. Tough one. I think the best thing that I can bring to you all right now is it's hard to be in the moment of pain when you're lost and confused, but the end result, if you push through that moment of pain, the end result of getting to that next stage in your career, the next stage in your life, is way better than if you just stayed there. You got stuck because you were in fear. You were fearful of the moment. So push through it. Don't be fearful.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. I think you're a great example. Yeah, of course, you're a great example of what a really successful non-engineering tech career path looks like. I always love hearing about these. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. And for our participants, we have several more episodes or sessions from other technology leaders over the course of the week. The next one is at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to see you all there. And thank you so much for participating. The recordings will be shared out once the events are over. Thanks again.